You're listening to Never Heard of It, a Night Shift Radio production. I mean, as far as time travel movies go, this one was barely one.
Of all the movies that I've seen, this is one of them.
This is one of them. Still one of our best Apple Podcast rating and reviews, which was done, in fact, by the director of production for Night Shift Radio, Kitsy. It was pretty fantastic. Yeah, so speaking of which, if you guys haven't already, go ahead and leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast platform you listen to. We'd appreciate it. And of course, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit subscribe. That would also be cool.
Yeah. Speaking of reviews, looking at the reviews for this movie, the top one, it's a 1 star out of 10. Not just bad, but shamefully, painfully bad. I don't know that I have that strong an opinion, but
I mean,
this person did.
this person did, and I'll be honest, they're not wrong. They're just, they're not wrong.
A little hyperbolic.
They're a little hyperbolic, but yeah. So of course we're on to movie number 4 of 5 for November. And today we are covering the film Escape 2120. And with that, I say hello and welcome to the Never Heard of It podcast. I'm your host, Michael Fite.
And I am the devil's child.
Caleb the Devil's Coy. So yeah, so we're doing a movie. We're done doing it.
We are done doing it.
We are done doing it. So we're going to talk about this movie. Now, I picked this movie because the premise seemed interesting to me. And it is interesting. The premise is absolutely interesting. It's a detached orphan teen escapes to the future in suspended animation, but when he arrives at a natural utopia, he must evade a lynch mob convinced that he's the prophesized devil's child.
Okay.
So, I mean, at initial thought, I'm like, cool. It's kind of a time travel-y movie, kind of. I'm like,
Well,
so,
yeah.
I mean, it really isn't. It's more of just a time waiting movie because he doesn't actually travel through time.
Aren't all movies just kind of time waiting movies?
Waiting movies. I mean, sure. The Titanic the whole time. This is gonna hit the thing any minute now. We'll see Kate Winslet's boobs, and then the thing will sink in the end.
The end. That's kind of like a foghorn. The end.
Which would have been very helpful for the Titanic. So too soon? Maybe.
I don't think it's too soon for Titanic jokes. I think you're in the clear there.
That ship has sailed.
I hate it.
I done did it to you. I done did it.
Oh,
So-
yeah, I think we're really picking up steam here.
Oh man, we just took that joke and sank it. So
just ran it aground.
Cold. So oh, brother. So yeah, so
this whole episode can just be those.
Can be Titanic puns.
It's Titanic puns.
Yeah. I mean, if we do that though, we'll never make it to our destination.
I don't know, man. I'm just feeling unsinkable tonight.
The unsinkable Caleb Coy. Boy. So Escape 2120. Something to note of this movie. So, I did say that this movie's not fantastic. The reviews are saying it's not fantastic. The trailer is not great. It's a terrible trailer. If you did in fact watch this trailer, you were probably like, what the fuck is this movie? But I do want to note that this movie was made for $40,000. So like good for them.
Impressive.
I mean, they made a movie, I think that's cool of them.
Yeah.
I like it when people make movies when they get a chance to,
I believe that. That seems like a thing you'd be into.
Yeah, it's weird. It's my kink. So this movie is really confusing though. I'm not gonna lie. So it has a lot of elements of Primer, that the a film we watched not that long ago. There is
Hmm.
kind of like elements of Primer to it.
I noticed
Uh
that as well. Yeah.
yeah. There's very much elements of, I don't know, I would say Back to the Future, but not really. But there is element, I'm trying to think of the movie I'm thinking of where it's like it was me all along, like I can't think of the movie that I'm thinking of, therefore.
I have no idea what you're talking
Yeah, me either.
about.
Can I
Wait.
play the piano anymore? Well, of course you can. Well, I couldn't before. I don't know why I thought that, but like I have Planet of the Apes vibes. The
I
end.
just, I just have one question for you. Was that
Yes.
a blue mason jar?
It is. Yeah, we have blue mason jars.
That's adorable.
Isn't that fun? Yeah, we've got the big ones and then we've got little ones too. And you've got the
They're,
clear
uh,
ones.
they're clear. They're just plain.
Yeah,
They're very basic.
they do their job.
They contain liquids
They
that
do.
then are contained into me.
Well, since we are two guys with beers talking about capes, what are we
What are
drinking?
we drinking? It's water.
That is just water out
I'm
of mason
extremely
jars
thirsty.
because we're fucking nerdy hipsters. So that was two references to night shift radio shows. Mind you, by the way, we referenced Left of the Dial, which Caleb is one of the hosts for, and then we
That's
just
true.
referenced the Super Pod Hero Cast, which just recently did the film The Crow, City of Angels, the sequel to The Crow.
Isn't that the one that came out like 40 years later?
No, there's like five of them, and The Crow City of Angels came out only a couple of years after
Oh.
Brandon Lee died.
I have no context of like the time frame in which the crow existed. I know that it was within my lifetime, and
Yeah,
I know that he died. That's all I know.
yeah, yeah. The Crow City of Angels came out 2 years after the original Crow.
Okay.
Yeah. And Brandon Lee died during the filming of The Crow, because that was one of the first films where they replaced him digitally. I remember people being like, "Oh my god, it was so cool. He was like running on the rooftops, but it was digital," because it was like 1994 and people like didn't understand what the future was going to be for them.
I,
Like think about that. Like people blew their fucking minds about like them animating Brandon Lee running on a rooftop, and then fucking 15 years later
now
you've
it's just
got
old
like
hat. We
Iron Man.
animate dead people all the time.
We animate dead people all the time, right? Yeah. And then fucking we animate people all the time. Thanos is an entirely made up character. Korg, entirely made up character. All Marvel people.
What?
What? That's not a real person. It's a person in a Korg suit. Um. Anyways, we should talk about this movie.
I
So,
guess, yeah.
so the plot of this movie is, this kid gets inside of one of those things that you use to deliver pizza, and then he wakes up and dollar store Biff bullies him for an hour, and that's the movie with
Have
a
you
lot of
noticed
dollar store
that
Alan Alda.
like basically everyone in this movie is like a like the like Hydrox version of some other celebrity?
It's true.
We've got like young clone of Josh Hutcherson
Yeah, that's who I
as the
thought it was
lead.
at first. Yep.
We have Larry David's stunt double as the doc. and, and then like confused Mike Herrera as like one of the strong men.
Right. Yeah. What do you listen, man? They only had $40,000. What are you gonna? Um,
And I actually think that I might have gone to school with the other lead. I'm just kidding.
Nalia Samantha Epema.
Yeah, I don't actually know her. That was
Yeah, she was anyway, so we'll talk about this movie. So the movie starts off where it's like, hey, we're going to do something really boring for 40 minutes, and then eventually we'll get into the actual thing you were interested in. It's like, cool. So the movie stars Dave, or is the character Dave, who is played by Edward Pritchard. Edward Pritchard, definitely. So he was born in England, which explains it because he was struggling to keep his American accent.
Yeah.
Um, but
He speaks in very short sentences.
he does. So he hasn't really been in much. So this is definitely one of the probably one of his biggest roles to date. So he was in a thing called Game of Chairs.
I mean, that's very obviously a like parody of Game of Thrones.
Oh, I never
Yeah.
knew that.
Yeah.
It's whatever. And then he was in a thing called The Adventures of Water Bottle John, who also stars Paul Kandarian, who was the doc in this movie, who
Oh,
was the
look at
guy.
that.
Yeah,
And it's like just the two of them.
yeah. And then he was in a movie called You're Invited. Um,
Paul Kandarian was Water Bottle John, and Edward was Yogurt Pot Dan.
Yogurt Pot Dan.
They call me Yogurt Pot
They call me
Dan.
Yogurt Pot Dan. You'll never know. I love. I always love like. Listen, mine is. I guess my IMDb is probably somewhat the same, but it's like known for, and it's like snow globes in summer, and like a bunch of movies that I'm like I've never heard of any of these. Um, although I guess I can humble brag that one of my known for is A Quiet Place too. So that's like that's kind
That's
of
how I know you.
noteworthy. Right. That's how we met. We were like hiding out from alien insect things or whatever.
What is this?
And I was like, oh my god. And you were like, shut the fuck up, dude. You're gonna die. Um
Shh.
shh, what the fuck's wrong with you? Yeah. So Dave, we learn, is an orphan, which I'm still entirely unsure what the point of the story of him being an orphan is. Like, I get in the larger picture of why we're like, oh, that's the whole parent thing, but like at first glance you're just kind of like, okay,
I mean,
like,
I guess it sets up that he has no like material connection to the present, and then he meets these two older people who act almost like stand-in parental figures.
yeah.
That's all I got for you.
Yeah, so Dave it works he's kind of in a foster home like environment, and he's now an adult, so we know he's at least 18 or older, and he's basically cycling out. So the place that he's living at is like, dude, you got to go. Like, you're an adult now, you need to get the fuck, like, get a job and get out of here. And he had been working with Doc and Sally. I don't know, maybe it just sounded magical.
It's like
So
that Ben Folds song.
yeah,
Jack
Jack
and
and
Sally.
Sally. Yeah, that's a good song. Jack and Sarah, it's called. Yeah,
Is it Sarah?
I think it's Jack and Sarah. I don't know, but
You're
that's
probably
like the
right.
second or third
Jack and
time.
Sally, I guess, is Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh yeah. Oh, somebody should make that as a parody
Mm.
song. And it's not Jack, it's Zach and Sarah. We were totally wrong. We
We were
weren't even
completely
close.
wrong. Everything about what we said was wrong.
Yeah, I guess we
It's okay. We'll fix it in post.
we missed that iceberg. Um, coming full
Ah.
circle, so we're getting, we said we'd do it. So he meets the doc and his wife Sally, who are they say that they are physicists, and basically they're working on this thing, basically a stasis chamber. So there was this like really weird thing. So they bring him in and they open this box and they pull out a banana, and they peel the banana, and he takes a little chunk off and he hands it to the wife, and she takes a little chunk off, and then they hand it to him, and he's like, okay. But like they spent a really long time like showing them do this, and they're like, eat the banana, oink, wink, wink. And he's like, you're fucking weird. What's wrong with the banana? And they're like, we put this banana in this box a year ago. And he was like, gross. Mind you, we
Yeah.
do have to point out every actor in this movie is terrible. And I feel bad for them. I don't mean that as insulting. Their performances are bad.
It's very wooden. Everything is very stiff.
Yeah, everything is very stiff and like, what? Why would you say such things? It was like, well, really rough. But anyways, so they explain the idea is that they've created a stasis chamber. So think back to Primer. It is very much primer, except
Mhm.
the other way around. So instead of getting in the box and jumping backwards in time, when you get
Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
box, it jumps you forwards in time, because,
Which,
reasons.
yeah, the box that they put the banana and some watches in a year ago is lined with foil in order to maintain the stasis field,
Sure.
which runs off of like 2 D cell batteries,
Yes. Very
I
actual
guess.
science.
Um, and so they extend this to human size by getting space blankets. So I guess like foil blankets,
Sure. Yeah, as you do. Yeah.
like
You
you do.
just
I mean,
head down to the Discovery store and buy some space blankets.
yeah. Well, he said that they were on sale at like the Army Navy store or
Oh
whatever,
yeah.
Army surplus. I don't
Costco.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably at Costco. He
They got
got
everything, man.
got a whole bunch of toilet paper while he was there, some frozen pizzas, like 30 pounds of ground beef, and some space blankets.
I have these wasabi flavored edamame. This shit's fucking fire.
I don't know.
Um,
I think I've been to a Costco once in my life,
I think I've been
honestly.
twice actually. Um, yeah, there's one here, but it's like a 35. Well, now it's like an hour drive, but from where I used to live, it was like a 30-minute drive, and I'm like, it's not worth the savings, man. Same thing with Trader Joe's. There's one now. It's like maybe 15 minutes away, but it was like 20 minutes away, and I'm like, I'm not driving to fucking Trader Joe's. There's a Wegmans, 10 minutes from my house.
You know, that's like a 5-minute difference,
That's fucking absurd. I refuse to do it.
right?
What do you think? I'm just made of time, Caleb? You think time grows on trees?
For all I know, it does.
Do you have
You just
Trader Joe's time, Caleb?
just go on down to the time tree.
Go ahead.
Uh,
Just pluck me a
I
couple
don't,
hours.
I don't know, man. I walk to the grocery store.
I don't know.
Everything's at least a 15-minute trip for me, so it's fine.
Yeah, well, now the grocery store comes to us, so
That's true.
because
That's true.
we refuse to leave the house. So
Shipped.com.
yeah,
This episode is
Instacart,
not sponsored, but it could be.
but it could be either Instacart or shipped. Either one of us. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's
So
fucking do it.
So they start explaining the process of stasis, and they do it in the most mundane way possible. Is they're like, here's this cool watch, put the watch in the box, and then when it comes out, check what time's on the watch. And I'm like, this is the dumbest, like, it's just a really dumb thing, but there's also a flaw in it. So later in the movie, they explain that when you go in the stasis chamber, time doesn't pass at all for you. You don't age or anything like that. But
Mm-hmm.
if you don't age, that means your functions, everything inside the box is basically frozen in time,
Mm-hmm.
and everything outside of the box is changing. But that's
Mm-hmm.
not really what's happening in this scenario. So in this scenario, it's everything in the box is going forward in time, but the outside world is changing.
No, the way they explained it is exactly what's happening. The outside the box, the world progresses for as long as you like set the timer. Like it just keeps going. You stay the same and come out in that moment in the future. You've just been in there, not aging, not having bowel movements, not decomposing for a year, 3 minutes, 100 years, whatever the case may be, within that field. The only thing that's weird to me is like how do you control what happens to you like externally while you're in there? I mean the box that they put them in, like that would decompose, or like they do address the possibility that like the location could get like bulldozed or things like that. There's a lot of factors externally that you have no control over that would terrify me about this process.
Well, so this is the thing I was talking about, where it's, instead of a time travel movie, it's just about a time waiting movie, is because when they put the watch in the box and then they don't wait for the 3 minutes that they say they're going to wait. They wait, like 1 minute, and then he opens it, but sees that the clock has, or that the watch has progressed farther than the time that they waited.
No, the watch was the same time that they put it in the box. They did wait 3 minutes. It just they didn't let 3 minutes of real time pass in the film.
Oh, see, I got
Uh,
it flip flop. So I thought that, so when
yeah,
okay, I see what you're saying. Yes,
yeah.
I must have I misheard that part then, I guess.
He says it's off by 3 minutes. And same thing with when they put the watch initially in with the banana a year
Yep.
ago. like the doc takes it out and says, "What's wrong with this watch?"
He's like,
And
it's
he
a
says,
year
"The
behind.
date's a year off, a year behind."
Yep.
Yeah.
Ah,
So
okay. That's the
in,
part I think I got confused about.
I mean, it's still a very confusing movie, but that part, I guess, checks out.
Yeah. So
It's the whole relativity thing. The stasis field essentially holds them relative. I don't know. It's
yeah,
I'm
I
not a
mean,
physicist.
very actual
You
science.
you know this about me.
I do know that Caleb is not a physicist. It's true. So Dave is talking with Doc and Sally, and they're like, listen, now that we've explained to you about stasis and time travel, like and how this is going to work, because it's not really time travel, it's just stasis. What we're
You're
going to
so
do.
mad about that.
I am very mad about it because it's not time travel, and it's not that I'm mad about it. It's just I want to clarify because it isn't a time travel movie as much as I thought it was.
It has the
So
same net effect.
it's kind of the same. It's in the same realm, but it's time travel the long way around.
Yeah.
That was a Doctor Who reference. So the Doc and Sally basically say to Dave, like, look, this is what we're gonna do. We've decided we're going to we've created human-sized boxes for these. We're gonna get in
Mm-hmm.
the boxes, and we're gonna jump back out in whatever 100 years or something. And they're like
2120.
2120, right? So they're like,
They're ready.
so in 100 years we're gonna bounce out of this box. We're gonna see what the world's like in 100 years, but our house is useless to us now because we're gonna go off and live in these cryo freeze until the year 2120, or freeze, not cryo freeze. And so we want to just give you this house. We're going to give you this house because you are, you know, I don't know, you were there, and we picked you at random. And so he was like, okay, cool. And then he gets really sad about it for like a week, which is really weird, because like this is the perfect situation to like solve the problem he's in, because like he's getting kicked out of his foster house. He doesn't have any money. He barely has a job, and now he motherfucker just got a free house and car. Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
dope. Like, this is exactly what he should have. Now we did learn that Dave was in a car accident when he was younger, but not much younger. It seems to be probably within the past couple of years, because somebody says to him like, "Oh, were you driving at the time?" And he was like, "No, I was in the back seat." So like, and it seems like it's very fresh,
Yeah, it's hard to tell
but it's really
because
weird. I don't
yeah,
know.
he acts like it was something that happened because I'm assuming this is what killed his parents. Like he
Hmm.
acts as though this is something that happened when he was very young, but then they show the flashback of it and he's not. And yeah, the question of like, was he driving? Um, he doesn't say like, no, I was too young. So like, we don't have a frame of reference to know for sure.
Right. So the only thing I can assume is that since we know that he's at least 18, that this happened sometime in the past 2 years.
Hmm.
Assuming. But the
But
other thing that's weird about this is like, so his parents had no other family or friends or anything, like that he ended up in foster care.
I mean, it happens.
So like both of them are only children, their parents are dead.
Maybe everybody hated them.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. Maybe his parents were terrible people.
yeah. I mean,
Maybe
shit,
he's a terrible person.
he's a terrible person.
We
Even
don't know.
even Harry Potter ended up with
Oh.
his aunt and uncle, his aunt Petunia.
um, but you mentioned though, like he's like basically inheriting all of these things that like would set him up in exactly what he needs to be a functioning independent adult,
Sure.
house, car, a sum of money to get himself started and whatnot. But you know what? The one thing he doesn't have, it's love.
Fuck my life.
he no, I honestly think that like they don't do a great job of really setting up his motivation, but like to me, the reason he gets mopey and sad, and the reason that like this isn't like the best thing that's ever happened to him in his short life is because he quickly becomes attached to these people as surrogate parents and they're like, "Well, we're leaving now," and he's like, "Oh man."
Yeah, I mean, so my thing
'Cause-
is I think I don't think that they did a very good job of establishing that Doc and Sally were like a major part of his life and like how he was chosen, because they basically bring him in. They're like, well, you were chosen because of, this test you took and blah blah blah, instead of being like, hey, I've been tutoring you for 4 years now, like I knew you before your parents died. Like that's how it should have been. Like they obviously, like they didn't even know his parents were dead,
yeah,
because like he goes to drive the car and he's like, oh, I haven't driven since, and he trails off and he was like, oh, were you driving at the time? Or, and he was like, no, I was in the back seat. And then we get our flashback. So like it's really weird because, I get, like I totally get what they're trying to set up of why he actually is sad, because he thought he was replacing his parents. But like we're talking, this happens over the course of knowing these people for maybe a week, like
yeah,
barely a week.
yeah. Like it feels like they try to establish this really deep, complex relationship between these characters, but they do so in like a really choppy series of like montage scenes of them like testing the equipment and like selling the equipment and going for one last drive and having dinner and stuff like that. But like it really like it can't have been more than a few days. And
Would they even
it,
say there? He's like, well, we're doing this in a week. He says at the start of it,
mhm.
like, we're in 1 week, we're going to do this. We've got all our affairs in order. And then at the very last time, right before it happens, she says, Sally says, okay, we're going to go off and tie up loose ends with our friends, give us a day or whatever. And then the next time we see them is when he's putting them in the box.
Yeah, yeah. Which they get themselves a nice little above ground mausoleum
Yeah, yeah.
with the names Doc and Miss Sally
Er,
uh, carved into the stone wall with some nice horse paintings or something like
yeah.
very very gentle, very peaceful.
With like a little
And then
trick
a little,
like a little trick key thing.
trick lock that uses a fucking tire iron as a like an Allen wrench sort of thing. It's weird.
It is very weird.
And like they make a point of showing like this stone door is incredibly heavy and moves very slowly, and it just makes me wonder like, okay, they're showing it open from the outside because open and close. Well, they never even show it close.
No.
So presumably he has to crank the thing the opposite way.
Yeah.
Uh, does it have the same kind of lock on the inside? They don't show him leaving an Allen wrench, tire iron, whatever the fuck it is, for them to open it up.
Yeah, like how
But
did they get out?
they seem really confident that they're going to be able to just pop right out when they're done. Like they
Yeah.
put a lot of thought into this, presumably.
Right.
I mean, their whole reasoning for not staying in the house was, what if something happens to it? Like the house gets sold, it gets bulldozed for development, or something like that.
Sure. I
Which,
mean, which it's totally logical. I mean, their plan, the general idea of the plan is really fucking smart. It really
hmm
is. Like, where to put the stasis. Like the primer guys, had them in like a storage
yeah,
place, which is like smart for the short term that they were doing it in. But like these guys were like, no, like this is 100 years from now. Like, what's the one thing that somebody's not going to fuck up? And it's likely not going to be a cemetery. I mean, we have
yeah,
cemeteries that are 100, 200 years old now.
yeah,
So like it was very smart of them. I think that was very clever.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it also was a little bit of a joke because it's like, oh, it's our final resting place.
Ha ha. We might die. And
Well,
yeah.
he does make that joke. He's like, if something happens, well, it was an appropriate spot.
This is right. We're exactly where we should be. Um, and so now they've gone in their place, and Dave is he's off, and he's like, all right, well, I guess this is it. And he kind of starts getting the sads, and realizes that like, this is stupid. I want to go be with Doc and Sally. So he um makes basically home makes one of these stasis containers.
Yeah, kinda.
Well,
So
kind of the
here's
movie
actually
won't.
where my problems begin with this movie.
Yeah.
Like up until this point, like I've been pretty lenient, but I got a lot of problems with you
I got a
people.
lot of problems with you people.
um, he has access to their test boxes, which were in the living room of the house.
Yes. Yeah, because
They
they were
make it a
using them.
point. They make it a point to show that they've got test boxes in the living room at the same time as they've already set up. They've prepared. They're ready to go in the mausoleum. So that's at least 4 boxes, 2 sets.
Yeah.
Where did those other two go? First of all, where did they go? Because they don't transport those to the mausoleum, to my knowledge, unless they like just kind of filmed things in a weird order. Because as far as I could tell from like trying to pay as close attention as I could, those boxes were still in the living room when they were setting up the mausoleum. So there's that. Where did those go?
Well, we do
He
see
digs
one
through
later.
he digs through the trash and finds the D cell battery with the button from the original cardboard box, grabs one of the space blankets by itself, and just goes off into a cave and like tucks himself in for the night. Like
Right.
doesn't
Like a
have like
sleeping
a fully
bag.
enclosed box to create the feel. Like Homeboy doesn't really think this through very well.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing. Like, he's just fucking, sleeping bagging it in a cave. Like, you're telling me that in 200 years or however far away it ends up being, that nobody just walked up and be like, yo, there's a fucking dude, like, sleeping in a blanket right here, like, next to me.
And what would happen?
Yeah.
What would happen if someone walked in during the interim while he was in the stasis field? Would they
Just
find
like,
him, or would the bag be empty because he technically is like separated from time and space until he comes out the other side? Like, because they do kind of address this later on when they're like, oh, the box is empty now, but when I press this button, Doc will appear. But,
which is confusing because that's not what they described with the banana, is that the banana exists in the box. Basically, everything inside the box just freezes, but the outside of the box is still there. It again, it's stasis. It's not time travel. So if somebody were to wander up and just open the blanket, he would just be fucking in there, just sitting there because he's just locked in time.
Primer does kind of address this too, though, because they get into the boxes and go backwards in time,
Right.
and during that time, like the box is empty because they've already gone backwards.
Right.
So, like once someone gets into the box and goes back, you can get into it again.
Well, so that's the difference though, because Primer is going back in time. So when
Mhm.
when the somebody so once they've gone back in time and you go up to it, they're not there anymore because they haven't gotten there yet. The issue with it being in the future is that time is still happening outside, like everything's like he's not traveling, he's just there
Mhm.
waiting for 100 years. So like
Mhm.
everything is still happening around him and he still exists right there because he didn't jump to the future. He's just sitting there waiting for the future, which is why
Yeah.
I'm very specific to say this is not a time travel movie up until the end.
But
And
even
then there is an
even
instance of time travel.
even discount the idea of a human doing some spelunking and walking by and be like, "Oh, what's with the blanket here, buddy?" Like an animal,
Right.
a strong gust of wind, a flood in the cave. Like
Right. Rock
there are
falls on him. He's fucking
yeah,
dead.
lots of scenarios I can think of that are just absolutely terrifying. And most of them are why I don't go in caves to begin with.
Right. I mean, bears. But hey, so now that we know that Dave gets in his little blanket and he's going to travel forward in time to meet up with his friends that he met just the other day, his BFFs, let's go ahead and take a quick break. Before we take a break, we want to thank everybody for entering our giveaway contest, which
Yeah,
just recently ended, and we'll be announcing a winner very soon. So thank you guys very much for entering the giveaway. Very exciting. We gave away a Busa Tech power bank, the power bank macro, which if you guys are on YouTube, you guys can see it right here because obviously we haven't shipped it yet. And we also gave away a Nahoit shirt, never heard of it shirt, to the winner, which is pretty exciting. So
yeah.
If you were the winner and you are listening to this because we have not drawn your name yet, congrats.
That's how
Uh,
time travel works.
that's how time travel really works. But yeah, so thank you everyone for entering. We super excited. You know, we were glad we were able to do this and expect more giveaways in the future, including one from the Night Shift Radio team. And speaking of the Night Shift Radio team, man, we got a lot of podcasts. Caleb,
Yeah.
where would someone go to learn about Night Shift Radio, the media company, as well as the other podcasts we have?
Conveniently, you can go right to nightshiftradio.com. And while you're there, you can click on the shows page and see all of the shows currently available on the Night Shift Radio Media Network. I say currently because we've got a bunch of great stuff in the works, so keep your eyes open there. We also have the print edition of our Storyteller Series podcast, as well as a blog that gets curated with content from across the whole network. So there's lots of great stuff on that site. And we mentioned the Never Heard of It shirts that we gave away. You can find a link to our merch store on there as well.
Spectacular. Yeah, and if you were so inclined and you wanted to maybe send us a movie suggestion, December is coming up, we'd love to do more listener requests. You
Mm-hmm.
could go over to thenahoit.com. That's the NHOI THENHOIT, thenahoit.com. I got
I
that one.
believed in you. I knew you'd
Thank
get
you.
there
I
eventually.
get there. And you can go ahead and we have a submission form. You can submit and be like, yo, you should totally cover insert random movie name, and we'll check it out and maybe add it to our list. Or if you want to be like, yo, you guys are fucking terrible, please stop making podcasts. We'll be like, hey, thanks for the feedback. We're still going to. Um,
We will take that under advisement.
yes, we will submit it to the tribe of brothers. It's the reference to the movie.
Okay, I
Um,
get it. I get it. Because I
and
watched this movie.
but if you did not want to traverse the web and you're like, yo, man, I'm just on Twitter and Instagram all the time, you could go to the Nahoit podcast, the NHOIT podcast on both Twitter and Instagram.
It's
Tag us
true.
in movie trailers, just tweet at us or even tag us in Instagram and be like, yo, this is a thing and this is what I want to tell you guys. We would appreciate it. Also, give us a follow there. So let's go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we will finish with Escape 2120.
You're listening to a Night Shift Radio production. Night Shift Radio is a modern media company bringing you shows that entertain, inform, and most importantly, provide an escape. Never Heard of It dives into the world of bad, obscure, and sometimes just weird movies. Follow along with the crew of Set Condition 1 as they experience the 2004 sci-fi hit Battlestar Galactica, one episode at a time. Each week on Left of the Dial, we explore a new record or revisit an old favorite. We'll bring in guests to talk about their own music and the state of the industry. The Superpod Hero Cast, guys with beers talking about movies with capes. They draw a random comic-inspired movie from Thor's helmet and offer thorough, insightful, and humorous commentary. And once a month, tune into the Storyteller series and get lost in the magic of a good old-fashioned radio drama. Learn more about these fine shows at nightshiftradio.com and subscribe on your favorite platform.
Hello and welcome back from the future.
Whoa, the world of tomorrow.
Why do you got to do that? Oh, let me have fun. Oh boy.
Oh, look at that. I pulled up our website earlier, thenohoids.com, and I
Hey, what a
forgot.
great
And I was
website.
it's like, why do I have this tab open? Because I was looking at it. You mentioned the trailer for this website, and that had me think. Because I actually didn't watch it prior to watching the movie. I just found and posted it on the site as I'm wont to do.
Yeah.
Because I was like, wait, did I actually do that this month? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
So that's why that was open.
Oh, very
Um,
nice.
Escape 2120 makes it feel like it's gonna be some like a big action movie. Like
It did.
shit really like goes terribly wrong, and like they gotta escape.
I expected a lot more running.
Yeah, yeah.
There was no running. In fact,
was-
there wasn't even really like if we don't press the green button in 10 minutes, blah blah blah, it'll just be it. There was like no time constraints, like ironically there were no time constraints in
Yeah.
the movie whatsoever. Like it very
There
much
was
just was like,
there
hey,
was
I should do this.
a little bit of an escape, but it was a very slow motion escape. A very like we got time to sit here by a fire and look at the Grand Canyon for the night, as long
And
as we prop the door open to the portal pod,
yeah. The
so
poor
no one else can come through the portal potty.
now there are a couple of things I do want to talk about in this movie that I thought were like really interesting concepts that they talked about, but were like, I don't know, things I would have wanted to talk about more. So like one of them is nobody in the future eats processed food, or basically everybody is vegan in the future and they don't cook food. Like everything's paleo but vegan in the
Which
future.
honestly sounds like a miserable life to me.
I mean, it
Even like
absolutely sounds terrible.
even if you've eschewed the eating of animal products, which is fine, okay, but like not cooking anything, like not like just like I love tomatoes, don't get me wrong, but when he makes the joke of like, oh, a juicy steak would be nice, and she hands him an underripe beefsteak tomato that he just starts mowing down on, like I I didn't have to be there to know that that was not a good tomato. That was unripe. It was mealy. It was like like I could taste how unpleasant it was.
Yeah. Well,
And I will fucking munch on a tomato like it's an apple or any other
sure.
piece of fruit if
I
it's a
have.
good fresh ripe garden tomato. That was not. Then
No.
like and traveling forwards in time and that's your first meal, like this is not a place that I want to spend the rest of my life in.
Right. Well, there's still also some, I mean, there's some sense of currency, although it does seem like the society lives more off like a communal, everybody just does everything, because there is a reference to money.
Well, he stumbles into there's a series of yurts in this wooded area near the caverns that he took his nap in, and one of them has like
Rip
a
Van
bar.
Winkle.
Yeah, so he
He's
sits
Rip
down at the
Van Winkle.
bar.
It's
Yeah,
fucking Rip Van Winkle.
there it is. There it
That's
is.
that's what the movie is.
That is exactly what it is. You're right. Um, oh, he sits down at the bar and just kind of like looks around, like, enjoying the sights of nothing because it's a small tent. And the bartender, who inexplicably has like a Welsh accent or something, is like,
Yeah.
"What can I get for you?" He's like, "Oh, I'm good." And the guy's like, looking at him like, "The fuck are you doing here then?"
Like,
He's like,
get
"Oh,
out of my fucking bar.
I don't have any money." He's like, "Oh, you must mean credits." Like you get the reference, but it's not weird to you that he called it something totally different. First of all,
Right.
and then he goes on to say, "I don't expect I carry anything important enough to need credits." Motherfucker, you got food and drinks, right? Like that's pretty important.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. I like the idea that they possibly have some sort of currency-based society, but have decided that basic needs like food and shelter and transportation and whatnot don't cost you.
And clothes.
I
Yeah.
like that a lot. That's
Sure. I mean, it
that's
definitely seems like they've deconstructed capitalism, but like a
that's the
bar
future this
exists.
liberal wants.
But like a bar exists. So like, what's the point of the bar? I guess to like serve people, but if you can just get like, I kind of don't understand. Like, I get the concept, but I don't understand the purpose.
You're starting to sound like Tom Zarek.
That's
Why should the bartender serve
three
me?
podcast references.
What's in it for him?
What's in it for him? Well,
A
I
big
mean,
tip?
sure. I mean, I get it. You know, in a capitalist society, the whole point of the bartender being a bartender is to make money so that they can go off and buy their own things, pay their rent, get their clothes and stuff like that. But if there's no need for any of that kind of stuff, I guess I could see them just being like, well, I just want to serve the people and blah, blah, blah. But but still, like, credits exist, which also is really annoying because money is such a generic term. Like, it's so pretentious for them to be like, well, I don't have any money. And he'd be like, oh, you must mean credits. Like, I don't go to a store and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have any money. And they'd be like, no, you mean American dollars. Like, nobody fucking says that. You know what I mean when I say money. Like,
Currency.
Currency. You know,
How
like it was just
quaint.
it was just such a like it was just annoying. Like it would have been, I think the whole thing could have played off just fine. And I get they're trying to be like, well, in the future it's called credits or units or whatever, futuristic bullshit term you want to put onto currency. But like
Yeah, well,
money
you
is
know
a
what?
character.
Uh, I was promised that in the future all restaurants would be Taco Bell, and that's not the case here. So fuck you and your credits.
Well, maybe they were talking. Oh yeah, because this was 20. No, but this is after Demolition Man would have taken place. So this could still be what it's like, because I think Demolition
Maybe
Man's like in the year 2000 still.
maybe all restaurants being Taco Bell is what led to an entirely vegan paleo
I believe
society.
this. I wholeheartedly believe this as a fact. This
I
podcast is
mean,
not brought to you by Taco Bell.
but it should be.
But
I
it should
fucking
be,
love Taco Bell.
especially now. Maybe they'll be like, fuck you, idiots. um I mean, they're the only ones that won the franchise war, and I still believe that to be true. I think that Demolition Man was prophecy.
Demolition Man was a true story.
It was a true story. It just hasn't happened yet.
Taco Bell won the franchise wars, and the world is shit.
Yeah. It's true. Nobody touches people anymore. Everything's super hygienic because, coronavirus happened. And they got rid of sex because I don't know,
Because you
uptight.
can't be in the same room as people anymore.
Right. And they were like, ew, I either got a bone or die. Nope.
Guess I'll die.
Yes, I'll die. Yeah. So, anyways, back to Escape 2120. So we learn that. So once Dave gets there, he tries to go, which also was another slip because he refers to the bathroom as a privy.
Yes.
Which
Yes, he
is
does.
just such fucking British slang, instead of, he might as well have been like, oh yeah, I was trying to go to the loo after
The
I
loo.
used the lift, mate. And
The
it's just
WC.
the WC, and
All right, Edward.
so he ends up meeting Nalia, and Nalia is just ever so charmed by watching him piss outside of this house,
Because
and
he
she's
couldn't
just
figure
like,
out how to
"Ah,
turn the lights on in what he thought was the privy.
well, what he thought was the privy." And so, but I still think it's funny that she was just like, some dude comes out, and just, starts peeing, and she's like, how quaint and charming.
This is just a thing that happens all the time.
This is just
Which,
totally not weird at all in this society.
given that we don't actually see any WCs or privies or even outhouses, like maybe that is a thing that happens all the time.
I mean, that is very true. It could be. I mean, they're all living in yurts, so
Yeah.
in their little huts.
For all we know, this is just how life is.
Yeah.
They don't cook anything and they shit in the woods. Maybe they are bears.
That's a society of hairless bears that talk. So Dave, obviously still thinks he's in the year 2120. He's trying to find the Doc and Sally. He explains the story, and through, a bunch of revealing anachronisms, Nalia's like, wait a minute. You are not from this time period. You must be the devil's child. And so she goes off and explains this very stupid wives' tale, which is very annoying because she was like, it's the prophecy. The prophecy says that this woman was going around looking for the devil's child, and like, it's a very old tale. And then she's like, oh, but by the way, that woman is actually real, and I met her only like 10 years ago. And you're like, wait, what the fuck? She was like, it's really weird.
This is the next big problem I have with this.
Sure.
Why the fuck does this legend exist? Okay, so supposedly she met the Winter Lady, which is a
another interesting concept.
Basically, a metaphor, because the way that they travel through portals uses the same essential stasis concept as the time machines in this, and so they don't experience the time in the same way as they travel all around space and all around the Earth and whatnot. So they don't count in years; they count in seasons, and so winter is the later years of your life as your hair turns gray and it's your season to rest and reflect and whatnot. So she describes this winter woman who we see in a flashback is Sally. I just dropped something. Uh,
Yes,
is
I heard.
Sally, but she's older. Um, but why is Sally talking about the devil's child? Why is Sally looking for the devil's child? How does Sally know that not only did Dave follow them, which I guess like it's she could probably guess that like he would have thought of it, but to know exactly where he was going to come out,
In the kid. Well, so that's the
that's a
thing. Like,
huge hole.
so like who
Huge.
who created the story of the devil's child?
So, I
Like,
mean, we're supposed to believe it was her.
yeah,
Because
but
they
like,
did initially come out in 2120 and supposedly lived a good chunk of their lives, and we learned that Doc is supposed to have died in 2149
yeah,
in his 70s, and so presumably since Sally is roughly that age now, which we learn actually like Dave overshot by like 700 years or like 600 years. Like it is like in the 2700s.
yeah,
Which again, how the fuck does that happen?
right.
He overshot by on this time, and supposedly the this woman is looking for him, and so she must be like jumping back in her box periodically and just
Ayo.
waiting out time to see if he shows up. Like, why?
Well,
There's never an explanation as to why.
right. And so the other half of that too is we learned that, so the whole idea of the stasis chamber is that you basically you get in it, you wait out your time, you wake up, once time has passed to whatever time frame it is that you want. But we learned that at some point in that time period, in the the late 2000s, in the 2700s or whatever, is that time travel is actually invented, because at one point Dave, towards the end of the movie, is actually sent back in time. He's sent back in time to kind of like fix all of the shit that he did wrong, which is basically like come into this small little village where only like 9 people live and fuck everything up and everyone go crazy. And he introduced a bunch of things that didn't exist anymore. Like, they're disgusted by the fact that he has fish hooks. They're like, ew, you eat meat. This is gross. He has handcuffs. He has which is weird.
He doesn't. Samuel goes and finds them
Oh, I
because he
thought he
talks
found.
about them.
Well, I thought he found the taser, but I thought the kit is what Dave had, and that was the fish hooks and the thing.
Fish
'Cause he
hook
says
and a
like, "Oh,
pocket knife,
yeah, that was part of his
which
kit."
he's
I thought
like,
the handcuffs were in that too.
he's like, you know what these are used for? For catching and gutting fish, and everyone's scandalized, like, oh my god.
Yeah,
Um,
and then a
yeah,
scene
and
later, we see him drinking raw eggs.
it's yeah, and it's not even so much that like Dave has done anything wrong to like really upset this balance here. It's that they think that he is this legend, which for all we know he essentially is, and so that's what causes them to go into like a miniature panic because they think that he's some sort of monster or disruptive influence. It's
But still, like, the whole prophecy of the Devil's Child still doesn't explain if the Devil's Child is bad or good, because there's no
doesn't
like
it
the
doesn't
Devil's
explain
Child's
anything.
gonna come and then what? Like, what happens with it? Like, they don't ever say what exactly happens when the Devil Child shows up. I mean, yeah, like, exactly. For those of you on YouTube, you can see Caleb being like, I don't fucking know.
I'm
I don't know, man. Anyways, so Nalia and Dave, now she's more into it. She's showing him a little about the world. She takes him to a library, and again, this is another interesting concept. He was like, "Oh, you do have computers?" And she was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh," he's like, "Well, I've been to a library before, and there's computers in every room." And she's like, "Well, that must be boring." And it's a very interesting again, that this is a very interesting cultural prediction that I thought was really cool. I like the idea of them being like, yeah, computers are awesome. We use them, for these technical tasks, but like it's not a daily thing. Like you use them for very specific purposes. Like, hey, we're about to go to the library and I use it to look up information, or I look up where this physical book is.
Mhm.
That's what I use a computer for. Or hey, I'm going to use it so we can travel to fucking Mars in 5 seconds. Like
Yeah,
that's what computers are for. They're utilities and less lifestyle.
and she kind of makes the same comment about electricity in general. She's like, when we have it, we use it more responsibly than they did back in the material days.
Yeah, which is also really interesting. I mean, I love that concept of like, of course we have electricity, you fucking idiot, but I'm not just going to use it for everything. What are you, stupid? Like, and that's another very interesting concept. The clothes is another, it's one of those futuristic things that are thrown in. However, they've already explained the idea of the society. It's a very communal society. It's very in touch with nature. I mean, they age based uh on season. So when you're young, it's spring. When you're in your prime, it's summer. As you're older, it's fall. And then when you're in your last years, it's winter because your hair turns white, like the snow on the ground. And sorry, Caleb, you're in your winter years. Hate to
I've
break
been
it to
in
you,
my
buddy.
winter years for a long time.
Yes. Caleb's in his winter years since he was 25. And but so that's like also a very interesting concept, getting rid of the concept of years and time. I mean, time is just a construct anyways. But anyways, and it's very interesting, the communal society, and I get it, the idea that money still exists, but it is used for something very more specific. I still want to know more about money. I'm sorry, units, or no,
You want to
credits.
know about units?
I still want to know. Well, I'll tell you about a unit. I still want to know about credits. Like, if credits are a thing that still exists, then how do you earn credits? And then if credits are still used for something important, then some form of an economy must exist. People still have
But
to manufacture that important thing. So, like, I don't know.
they
I
talk
have
shit
questions.
on living in cities, and apparently all the cities are gone, which she's like, oh, all those people crammed together. That must be horrible. But like, motherfucker, that's literally civilization. That's why we've thrived for as long as we have, is because we come together and form these uh, little mini societies that you know help do services and goods and whatnot for each other. That's life.
Right. But I guess
And
I guess the idea is, if you can travel to another planet in an instant, then what's the point of living in a city? You could literally live in the middle of fucking nowhere, Montana, and be
but
like,
why?
well, I'm just
Why
gonna
would I
go to
want to?
Saturn right now.
Why the fuck would I want, like, this place where they live, which had been a city that is long gone. They show,
It
like, as
was,
he's walking through the woods, they show flashbacks of where the city was. When I
yeah.
like fucking miserable. Why the hell would I want to walk around in pajamas and sandals in the fucking woods, living in a goddamn tent, just because I can zap myself somewhere else? No, fuck that.
I'm with you. I think it's absolutely weird, but it's interesting that this is the cultural prediction that they have made.
Put that in your fucking headliner. Post it all over your goddamn social media.
First off, if the future society is people walking around in sandals, that's not for me. I'm
That's a hard
sorry.
pass for you.
That's a hard pass. I would rather be considered a heretic than fucking walk around in sandals. That's the hill I will die on.
I respect that.
Yeah.
I've taken to wearing sandals most of this year because there wasn't really any reason to put socks on for the majority of it.
Sure.
And so if I had to go outside, it was in flip flops. But like all the time, all year round, no, my piggies would get cold. No, thank you.
I refuse. That's bullshit.
I
Anyways,
have handmade knit wool socks on, and they're cozy as fuck.
oh, see, that's great. I appreciate that. Anyway, so as the movie progresses, all hell breaks loose. We learn about the tribe of brothers, which again, Dollar Store Biff is in charge of, who talks like this, and everything is a proclamation. And he's fucking.
The actor's name is David Affleck.
Affleck, yeah,
It's
not
like
Ben Affleck.
it's like it's in a fucking cartoon or something like that. We
Yeah.
got David Affleck. David Affleck, that's amazing. No,
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 David
sorry,
Affleck.
David Affleck. Which, no offense to David Affleck, but also all offense to David Affleck.
Yes. But so we'll give it to David Affleck. David Affleck is in fact a full-time high school English teacher. So
Well, you know what?
thank you, David Affleck, for acting on the side and being a full-time high school teacher, English teacher. We appreciate you. That's
You're doing the real work,
you're
and
doing the good
we
work.
respect that. You know,
Yeah.
you can make all the terrible movies you want, sir.
So
We
right.
respect you.
David Affleck, we salute you here at the No Hate podcast. So yeah, so he runs this tribe, and you know it seems like he has some sort of evil like ulterior motives, but they're very vague. We kind of still don't really understand. You know, he's like, haha, I'm gonna send him out to space, but like why? Like again, it's very vague of what exactly the danger that this person poses. It's also very vague as to, you know, even though he seems like he's doing something bad, like he's a bad guy and he ends up tasing someone who it just becomes irrelevant. It's just like, but like why? Like what's the motive behind doing it? Just because you like being sadistic? I guess. But there's no end goal. There's no end goal for either Dave or Samuel.
It's hinted that there is some sort of like governing council of this area, or of maybe just Earth, I don't know, and that the Council of Brothers maybe believes that like has run its course and is no longer relevant to them, and they're going to essentially take over. It's hinted, it goes nowhere, and it's hinted that uh, Samuel,
Yeah.
that's his name. Yeah, Samuel.
Yep.
Essentially sees whether David is in fact the devil's child, or a time traveler, or just some asshole who stole clothes. And he
Right.
sees him as a disruptive influence, and could possibly hurt their plans to build a more uh, evil brotherhood society. I don't fucking know. And like he takes it upon himself to bring justice, but it goes nowhere. Like they have this like space exploration group, and he volunteers David to join it as like a punishment. But like, wouldn't that be fucking badass? Like
He could still
they
fucking be
take
in space.
fucking Captain Cody, takes him out into space, and like, you see that bright light? That's our star. And like, wow, this is really cool. And then like, you have to go back and do this again. He's like, no.
Why would I do that?
Like,
Yeah.
if
Really,
I tried to go 100 years in the future to meet up with my friends, and I missed the mark by fucking centuries, and they told me, I'm like, you know what, your consolation prize is you can go hang out in space. Cool.
cool. Fucking
But
great.
but he's like, no, I have to stay with this woman who saw me peeing yesterday, or like I
And
have to
who
find
also
my friends who I learned I've overshot by a century. Like, no, what does
right.
he have holding him here? He has
Right.
no more holding him to this time than he does to the time that he left.
And it would be, you know, because obviously he implies that there is some sort of connection between him and Nalia. So like it would be even more advantageous for him to live in this society because one, he doesn't have to worry about anything. Two, he's got a girl, and three, he's got a dope fucking job going out in space and just kind of hanging out. So like I don't understand what the downside. Perspective, I don't know. So here's where it gets extra wonky. So he goes and he ends up finding, he has to go back into his little blanket thing, and he's going to travel back in time in order to meet up with Sally. So he goes back in time to meet up with Sally, or no, he meets up with her
He's
now.
he like his plan, I think, was to just like escape further into the future and just be like, I'm done with this. But then like he decides like, I'm done running. Like he makes a graveside promise to his parents, or like very Bruce
Yeah.
Wayne style, and he goes to the mausoleum instead. And I don't know what he expects to find there. Like he tries to open up Sally's crypt, whatever, and he can't.
Right.
But then suddenly the door opens and there she is. He like this is
Now, now, did I miss a reveal that the reveal is that Dave and the Doc are the same person?
no.
That's
No,
not
because
a
I was
thing,
looking for
right?
something like that too, but that no, that didn't happen.
Okay.
The plan that Sally puts forth is that he can, if he gets in the box right now before she presses the button to bring Doc out of stasis, which again I don't know which chamber they're in. I thought they were in hers, but apparently they're in his now. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like if you get in there now, when I press this button to bring Doc forward, because you cannot occupy the same space at the same time, it will send you back. So there was never a plan to go back in time. She just simply says, like, you can do this. You can go back to 2149, where Doc supposedly had died. Where she published a book to like throw people off the case, and then they were going to travel forward. Again, why? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Never explained. His idea being that he can go back and prevent the legend of the of Lucy's lagoon, or whatever the fuck the canyons are called,
Right.
and the devil's child from ever becoming a thing. And so like he can put a stop to like having like being hunted in the future. But like the idea, like he'll go back and he'll meet up with Doc and
Nalia.
Sally
Yep.
when they are in that time frame. Which again, how? Because the Doc is coming forward and she's like,
And then he would be in the back, and then she would be in the forward, and they would be
it's all
again
very
600
confusing.
to 700 years apart.
But like he gets back there and he sees them and he hugs them and like this is all great, and this is they're like, oh, this future must seem pretty quaint, and he's like, no, not really, because they're like in this massive like mega city and there's all this bustling traffic. And he's like, oh, so people don't use portals? And like Doc's like, well, some people are lobbying for them, but they haven't really caught on yet. And then he's like, okay, cool, it's good seeing you guys again. I'm gonna get back in the box and go back to 2738 or whatever the fuck it is,
Yeah.
and all will be well, and I can go hit on Nalia, who won't know who the fuck I am now.
Right. So you literally have to start from scratch. And the only thing that was interesting about you was the fact that you were from, 1,000 years ago or 800 years ago or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
all right. So should you watch this movie? No, I don't think you should. I can't recommend it for any reason. I mean, I think the cultural aspects, like the cultural concepts that are brought up are conversation starters, but I think you can find them in better movies. That's my thing. And I think you will find better time travel movies.
I mean, I guess I look at it from the perspective of if you're angry all the time because you've been reading the news and like you look outside your window and people aren't wearing masks and like the whole place is just a fucking steaming pile of garbage and you want to be angry about something else, then yeah, watch the movie and be angry about it.
Watch this movie. Yeah, 100%, and then be angry about that. But again, I can't recommend this movie. I just can't. I don't think it's worth. I mean, kudos for them for making a movie for $40,000. That, I mean, like visually looks good. The sound is fucking terrible. Some people their audio peaks and sometimes they're echoey. At one point, Dave hits his chest and it's clear that he's hitting his microphone. Like it's very obvious that he's slapping the lavalier, the lavalier microphone, and it's frustrating. There was many moments where I was like turning up the volume and then going, fuck, and I had to turn it down. Like it was very badly mixed. Yeah, man. The actors, none of them are great. I mean, it's not like anyone gives a good performance. The only one maybe is Nalia. But that's even like not saying much. I can't recommend this movie. But if you were so apt to watch this movie because of the reasons Caleb said, it is available streaming for free on Tubi TV, or as well on Prime Video if you have Amazon Prime subscription and you want to watch it without a commercial break. Yeah, so there it is, Escape 2120. So we got one more episode left in this month, and I'm actually excited for this one. I really hope this one's good. But we are going to be watching the Terry Gilliam film Jabberwocky. So I'm really excited for that one. That one's going to be, I think it's going to be cool. So definitely check it out. Again, if you haven't subscribed, do subscribe. That way you'll know when episodes happen. We drop a trailer on Thursdays and then an episode on Sunday.
I was thinking the whole time. I actually looked up where this was filmed. I'm like, this feels like it was filmed in like Appalachia. It was filmed in Marietta, Ohio, which
Nothing
shares
quite
a border with West Virginia, the border being the Ohio River, and also Marietta is crossed by the Musqueam River. I don't know how that's pronounced.
sure.
And so yeah, it's basically takes place exactly where I thought it did.
Exactly what it definitely. This movie definitely looks like it would be Ohio. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, I don't know. Don't watch this movie, but if you wanted to, Tubi TV, Amazon Prime. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and we will see you next week.